Today's episode is brought to you by...
Hi, I'm Jeff Goulding and I'm a Liverpool author.
And I'm Kieran Smith, the Liverpool historian.
Together, we've been working on a book entitled The Untouchables, Anfield's Band of Brothers.
It's a great story about one of the greatest sides in Liverpool's history who won back-to-back titles in the 1920s.
Yeah, this is a team that is absolutely packed with incredible characters. Men who fought on the battlefields of Europe in the First World War and returned home to claim 2 league titles in a row.
It's due for release in the UK in September, and thanks to our friendship, the Liverpool Connection podcast, it's also going to be made available through them in the United States.
Welcome to the Liverpool Connection podcast. I am Daz. I got Steve with me, and all the way from Liverpool. He is a regular on the Anfield Wrap, is Damian Kavanagh. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for having us. Thanks for getting up so early for us as well.
Yeah, I don't know about the gentleman part, but yeah.
Okay.
We'll see about that. I will throw questions at you first. So, why Liverpool Football Club? What does it mean to you? Like when did you basically really start to support them?
I can't imagine not being a Liverpool supporter just because we were born into it. You know, my granddad used to take me dad to watch Liverpool in the old second division. And so it's always been around me, football. You know, obviously where we live is very passionate about its football. We've got 2 great clubs and you're born one or you're born the other. You know, and that's how you're identified and how you're known. And even if you don't go to matches, you're still passionate about your colour team. Is it red, is it blue? You know, and people who would always show themselves on final days and, you know, really, you know, passionate on derby days. Back in the old days, before a derby match, you'd hang your scarf in the window, you know, and that sort of died out in I'd say the 80s, really, something like that. But certainly on cup final day, I remember putting our scarves in the window. But certainly just the derby, it would mark it out, and it was such a it's just, you know, it's the national sport, but it's certainly very passionately the national sport of Merseyside, if you like. And so my dad was a football fanatic, and he'd stopped going. Basically because of me, because he's got a young family, but he still played football and still avidly listened to the commentary on the radio and, you know, followed the fortunes of the team. And so I didn't get to go to the match with me dad as often as I might like to have done. But it's certainly where I got it from, and there was no question about anything. You know, everyone had some kind of interest in footy, even if it was just to say, I hate footy, but I'm a red. That's the level of passion. But obviously I love football, picked it up playing footy in the street with my mates. Getting in the school football team, getting taken to a couple of games. Once, the first ever game I went to was an Everton game, but I went as a red with my dad's best mate at the time, and I just enjoyed the spectacle as a little kid, going on my dad's shoulders and on my mate's shoulders in turn, watching the match. And then the first Liverpool game I went to was the Emlyn Hughes testimonial, which dates me, doesn't it? So that was the late 70s. And yeah, and going forward over that time, my dad would be working like the Beatles, 8 days a week, you know, and basically didn't get much time to spend too much time with him in that regard, as on a social side. But my passion was there, and I went to a couple of games with him over time. And then as I grew into, you know, being old enough myself and getting my own paper round that I could pay for things, there was only one thing I wanted to do, and that was to be at Anfield, supporting that team. So
do you remember like the first time, like going through like the Shankly Gate?
Well, when I went to Shankly Gate to there the first time, you know, Shankly Gate obviously after Billy died, weren't he? Yeah. So that, yeah, it does mark me out, doesn't it? As you know, legacy fan, I think FSG called us the other month. Hit the nail on the head there. I certainly identify with that. But yeah, going to the match and it being a night game, and all those legends, you know, and then you get there, and everyone's kind of says the same story, don't they, when they get to a match, don't they? And then it's sort of like you're going there and you're excited about it, and you're thinking, wow, you know, I'm part of this boss gang now if I could get here on a regular basis. And just going through the turnstiles, and you walk up the steps, and then, you know, there's the floodlights and there's that green football pitch in front of you. You think, wow. And all the history that goes with it, you know. I mean, like I say, you know, Liverpool's you know, we follow Liverpool. You know, my family, people say, how long have you supported Liverpool? I'll say 100 years. Mm-hmm. You know, because my lad's going to go after me as well. You know, my lad goes now, but it's just our team. And so it just feels very historic and very generic to us, very, you know, it's of us. And so going that match, it was like, you It was a right of mine to go. I had to earn the right, you know what I mean? I had to, pay me money and make the efforts. But certainly it was a very natural progression, and certainly my dad, couldn't have not taken me at some point. And yeah, it was just magical. And Liverpool lost Emlyn News testimonial. Testimonials, quite rightly, aren't taken as seriously as other games. It was a benefit game for when the players who were on good money at the time, but certainly not on anything like they're on now. And it was supposed to be a farewell or a tirade or 10 years great service. And Emlyn News certainly earned all that. So it was just magical. And then I remember going to a couple of games, late 70s, early 80s, I think more like now, early 80s. And I remember beating Spurs at home 2-1. Not the one where we won the league, where we came back from behind and like that, but it was around that time. And a game against Ipswich when they had a good side as well. And it was just magical being part of this, being this little lad and getting taken by my dad and his mates, and just wonderful. And it was about the mid-80s. It was certainly about 85 before I was able to go on a regular basis and call myself someone who went all the time. It took till that. And it was just, the demographics of like work and life and where I was up to. And like I say, I got my own paper round, so got my own money. There's nothing stopping me.
Yeah, I think the first time you actually like pay yourself, because my granddad used to take me all the time. Did the same thing on the shoulders. Then when he went to the bogs, he'd put me on some stranger's shoulders.
Oh yeah. You trust your family with your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'd still be there when he gets back. And
it's very like that. I'm very fortunate in that regard, and the fact that I go to match with a load of lads who've got the very similar stories. Obviously, but we're all different ages and that. But and certainly taking our sons to the game, and our sons now are the lads who are doing the flags on the front down the front of the Kop, because of how long we've been going, and everyone knows everyone when you've been going that long. And it's sort of like they're saying, yeah, get the youngsters down here, the volunteers, get them down here. So it's a great rite of passage. And certainly, as a dad, and taking my own son and that, I think I'm dying for a wee, and I'm outside the ale house. So I was in company of people who'd been grown up around. Do you know what I mean? So it feels very much like an extended family. And I'd say when you've got close friends or people you've grown up with, they're like cousins to you, aren't they? They might not be blood relatives, but it's as close. And you've chose to spend this time with these people, and it just feels very like that. It feels like a very inclusive club, doesn't it? I'm sure all football fans will feel that about their team and their clubs. But I think Liverpool's very clannish and very welcoming, and I'm very proud of that. And certainly like to be part of that, and if the strangers who come and don't get the chance to support the team as much as we fortunately do, I'm very happy to welcome them in the fold. And and it's great to see people enjoying the club. And a couple of people yesterday who were bumped into, I haven't seen obviously since the pandemic and all that, taking their kids to their first matches yesterday. It was lovely to see.
Oh man, that must have been nice for them. Yeah. I mean, obviously tickets are hard to come by now. So if you have one, you're kind of blessed.
It never used to be like that. In the mid 80s when I started, Liverpool were winning everything in sight with mid 30,000 average home gate. But they would sell out matches. They would the Derby, the Man U game, and title clinching matches, and so it wasn't unheard of. But by definition, to go through the whole season and have the average gate 10,000 less than the capacity shows you that the appetite for football, when it was much cheaper to go, wasn't there. But times are hard on Merseyside at that time. That's not a cliche; it's a statement of fact. And obviously, the problems in football at the time with the hooliganism and the reputation of hooliganism, which frightens more people than necessary. If you were a match goer, you can, there by the grace of God on any incidents or things like that, you've only got to look at Sean Cox, you know what I mean? Minding his own business exactly where he should be, doing no harm to nobody, enjoying his team, and some arseholes turn up and start all that, you know what I mean? He did nothing wrong and he was a complete victim, and that can happen to anyone. But in reality, a lot of the time, where you're safe. And so that's why I wasn't put off in the mid 80s, and it was sort of like you could sort of say, well, I've got a sense of things coming here and that. And that's something that we do need to talk about in regard to, the attendances and that, because that's part of the reason why football was like that then. And I was fortunate in that manner, if you feel like, I was a season ticket holder at that time. So I didn't get a problem getting tickets for Anfield matches. The only problems I might have was for the cup finals, for example. And obviously the relative, if you look at the average home gate and the size of away allocations or Wembley allocations, it's, you've got to have a bit of luck. But obviously since then I've got all the loyalty And I'm very lucky, my ticket's guaranteed, and I'm very grateful about that. And I pay not an unreasonable price for my ticket, but that's deliberate. I deliberately sit in the corner of the Kop in block 202. There's 2 reasons for it. One is it's the cheapest seats you can get. So my season ticket's 685 quid, and that works out at £37 a match. I think 30 quid for a match is about right.
Yeah.
I think if you put it in terms of what would be the national living wage in Britain, what do you think what you should have to pay for 2 hours entertainment? Then look at it and say, well, this is literally the greatest standard of entertainment you can get. If you go round the world and you watch Liverpool these last few years, you don't get any better than that. If you look at the crowd, people tune in to watch Liverpool. People follow Liverpool from afar because the crowd marks it out. We've had times where there's been teams that's better than ours, and there's been passionate crowds, but there's no more passionate crowd than ours. And obviously there's a romance to that. I understand all that. So that's the main reason why I choose to sit where to sit. And unfortunately, and so the Champions League matches, I pay 37 quid. I don't think that's unreasonable. I think it's a little bit heavy. And I am actively, interested in ticket prices coming down. And I've got a little bit more time to get involved in a couple of little forums about ticketing, which I intend to do. Because I think you should have people on there who've been there and done it and understand what it's like to queue up and what it's like to miss out on a cup final. And what it's like not to get a ticket for a game, but also what it's like to be the guy who gets them for the group, and understands how qualify for tickets and what's fair, and being in situations where I've thought this lad should have got a ticket for that final, and things like that. So you literally can't please everyone because we've got so many deserving causes. But I think I should, as an experienced ticket collector for the lads and a match goer, I should offer me opinions at least and me viewpoints. That's positive. And the other side of it is, I'll go there because the pub that is drinking the Stanley is a 5-minute walk. It's called the Glenbuck Hotel, so I think they'd rather me say it was called that, but it's been called the Stanley since before Liverpool FC was founded. Yeah. That's how historic that place is. And that's where we gathered yesterday. And the turnstiles to the Kop, where we go, is the nearest to the Stanley. So the shortest walk, and that's part of the decision why I chose the seats where I've got as well.
That sounds like my decision-making process right there, Daz.
Right there, isn't it? I mean, if I'd done round the other side of the Kop, it would, it could cost me half a lager every time. You know what I mean? So, no, it's and it's one of those things where you go to match and it basically you're out the house, you're away from your family for the day. But by definition as well, by the time you've travelled, and if you literally I spent an hour with me mates before the game yesterday, so literally an hour. So even though you're out all day, it's only that hour. And then after the game, it's only that hour afterwards. But obviously, you've got the game, and it's just trying to fit everything in. That's the point that I'm making. And some people, so the chance to go and see these lads who I literally don't meet them on a social basis. I've grown up with them. We've all got our own lives. We've all got our own business. And we bumped into each other yesterday, and we weren't necessarily talking about what the lineup should be. It's how's the kids? How's yourself? You're looking well. Lockdown's put a few pounds on you, hasn't it, kiddie? All that sort of thing that you'd expect, for good, close friends to have. And it was lovely, certainly lovely yesterday to get back into the swing of that.
Steve, I'll bring Steve in now.
Hey, Damian, thanks again for coming on this morning.
Absolute pleasure.
Yeah, recently we had Mo Stewart, one of your colleagues from the Anfield Wrap. He came on and he kind of...
Oh, he's a nice fella, Mo.
Yeah.
Interesting guy as well with his music and that.
Yeah, and he discussed how he started at the Anfield Wrap just by happenstance, DJing at a party, and so I just wanted to see what your pathway to. I know you'd been doing some freelance writing before that. How did you get involved with Anfield Wrap and those guys over there?
Well, what a pleasure it is to be involved with the Anfield Wrap. I've got to say that, and they're always very nice to me, and I feel like I get treated like an uncle on there because I'm certainly older than the most of them. Do you know what I mean? And it just feels like that. They're always very nice to us. And I came in by accident, I think, really, to them in the fact that I've been involved in the at different levels and different things about the campaign for justice for Hillsborough. And there was an interview I did to promote a book on that. And a book that a great friend of mine, Adrian Tempany, wrote. Absolutely fantastic book, you know what I mean? It's called And the Sun Shines Now, and we were doing a review for that in Radio City Tower at the time where the Anfield Wrap were in Liverpool City Centre. So that's one connection I've got with them. And then I wrote an article about ticket prices in 2010 with Gareth Roberts, who I've come very close to. He was working on Well Read magazine at the time, and they picked it up. And so I already had these connections. And then obviously when we were talking about when definitive moments about Hillsborough came up, you know, the panel report and the inquests and that, you know, I was involved with, you know, over time, like, you know, understandably cross over with them with the interviews and that. And then it was just nice to do something nice. And where I work in Liverpool city centre is not far from where they are. I used to work with Andrew Heaton a long time ago. He's a good friend of mine, nice, really nice guy. And he invited me in on one of these shows when they were in Liverpool city centre. And so there's another connection I've got. And then the other side of it is the post-match pint, which I do most of. I'm just there on spec all the time because I know I'm going to be at those home matches, and literally doing a post-match pint is exactly what I'm doing anyway. Literally fall out the car, go and have a bevy with your mates, talk about the match.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's it, you know. And so even if say they needed someone at short notice, I was like, yeah, it's great fun. I'll enjoy doing it. And sort of grew a bit from there, and I've been involved in more shows, and you know, I'm doing, you know, I've done a lot of stuff which has been lovely to do. And I've kind of like, I always admired them, and I thought, aren't they great and aren't they smart? And, you know, and some of the ideas they come up with, I just thought, how did you think of that? And how simple are the ideas? But for example, the post-match pints, I would never have dreamt about being involved in anything like that. But it's a hit, isn't it? People enjoy watching it. And I understand as well, because, and then when I talk to my friends who don't go to matches all the time, they're like, yeah, you know, I can picture myself there, you know, what, jangling about the game and that, you know, and it's not meant to be analytical. It's how you feel just coming out of the match. And so it just grew from there, really. And so I'm a very regular contributor there now, and I love it, absolutely. And what I really thought where they were smart, and there's a number of levels where they're smart, but during lockdown I thought they were brilliant. When the season stopped, and it really felt like, and I sort of joined, even though I knew them and I got on great with them. Like I say, they're always brand new with me, you know, what a nice gang of people they are. And then, but also, I kind of felt it must be like how a lot of the customers felt, in the fact that during that lockdown there was videos and interaction and familiar faces talking about what you like, you know, breaking up your day, keeping you in touch with something, even though it's in suspended animation and you can't actually see anybody, you're still hooked in. And so during that time of you know, the world being on pause and football being, I like Jürgen's comment, the most important, unimportant thing in the world. I mean, that's to us, isn't it, as football fans? If you like gymnastics, if you like ballet dancing, that good on you. That's the same thing. You know, it's what you like. It's what's brought us together here. Here you are at breakfast time in America. You know, and here we are. You know, we're amongst friends, aren't we? You're straight off the mark because we've got this passion for the same thing. And it's just evolved over time. So it wasn't a plan or nothing. It certainly wasn't that. But I thoroughly enjoy it. And it's the greatest hobby you could have, you know, talking and football. I mean, there's two things for me.
You know, it's interesting because if it wasn't for COVID and being on lockdown and not being able to travel, I don't know if really even our podcast would have, you know, took off the way it did, because people were searching for that kind of connection to the team, looking for any kind of material that still brings that experience, even though you're not going to get the games, you know, you're not being there. And the Anfield Wrap, Redmond TV, and they're all, you know, Liverpool TV, they've done such a great job, you know, while the fans were away to continue, you know, building the brand. And, you know, I don't think the popularity has dimmed at all, you know, over the course of 18 months for sure.
No, it must have been a worrying time for all these organisations, you know, yourselves and, you know, the Red Men and all those things. Must have been really worrying about how much people would be keeping their interest. And they've got to be innovative then, aren't they? They've really got to show how resourceful they are and how imaginative they are. And that's not something I'd be good at thinking about, I don't think.
Yeah, I was worried about my check cashing, you know, after every episode. So. Oh,
yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah. You know, these things are important, aren't they? But one of the things I enjoyed during the lockdown, by the way, because of me vintage, so 52 years of age, because the season had stopped, they were doing an on this day. And so there was like notable games in Liverpool's history. And what to a lot of them is stories about this great team in the 80s and what was it like this. I was either at these games or watched them on the telly. So I was able to give a little bit more in that regard. And so while this, that's, and it shouldn't just be about nostalgia, by the way, and certainly Anfield Wrap couldn't be accused of that. It certainly nods to history quite rightly, but it's always going forward. And I think that helps keep you young as well. If you're involved with people who are smart and quick and talking about things going forward, that's good, because you can't rest on your laurels and you don't know everything. So it's good. Yeah, it's very, very good.
Yeah, no, seriously, we don't get paid for this show, but we are working on getting free pints when we come back to Liverpool. So that's our form of payment.
Well, you come over, I'll buy you a pint.
Hey, there you go. Hey, I'm adding, and man, my list keeps growing, Daz.
Being recorded.
Hey, back to a more serious note. I know that, you know, even 2005, you wrote a great article about your experiences at Hillsborough, and you've been such an advocate for justice, you know, over the years. And this yesterday at the game, you know, there was a commemorative, you know, for the 97th victim, you know, Andrew. And I just wanted to get your thoughts, since you've been so entrenched in the process, on I was kind of not really surprised, but I was very well appreciative of the fact that how FSG really, you know, really took to the front, you know, get the 96 changed to 97 and having a ceremony. Can you kind of give us your thoughts about all that?
Yeah, well, if you want to talk about FSG, I think they're as good owners as we could ask for, by the way. I don't agree with everything they've done. They've made mistakes, and I've had me say as well. You know, and the beauty of that is the fact that then you're not just. I hate our biased football. I love the passion of football fans, but I hate the fact that they're blind or won't mention anything that their club or their fans do wrong and absolutely look for a problem with everybody. I hate all that. It's like, you know what? We're getting divided and conquered all over the place here. We've got so much more in common. I've just told you my story because of where we're from. If our family history was Newcastle, it'd be black and white. Do you know what I mean? Right. So we've just got loads in common with each other. And so divide and conquer of football fans is a big thing for me. Commonality of football, not bringing people together, is great. And yeah, FSG sound. I mean, of course, the timing of it with the kit's already launched and that, it's probably like, listen, financially and whatever. I was very emotional. I know exactly where I was when the news broke, the announcing Andrew Devine's death. And in all my involvement in all the things, I didn't think necessarily that might shake me, but it did. And I'm not too proud to admit that. And I felt comforted that it was announced that he's unlawfully killed the 97th year. So there's more people who were killed by Hillsborough than this. There's people who've taken their own lives. People I know myself. And people who are friends, who've been friends of other than friends of mine. So I can't quite get my head around what the right number is. But I understand there's got to be a definitive bringing together. And 96 was quite correct. And 97 is quite correct too. And we do wear our heart on our sleeve, don't we? You know, there's no maybe about it. Like, we're very public in our emotions. You know, it's not like there's no British stiff upper lip in Liverpool, is there? Do you know what I mean? We'll take anybody on. But if we're crying, we cry in the street. Right. And if we're happy, we dance in the street. That's just the nature of us. I think that's the Celtic and other mixes to the port city of Liverpool.
I think that's something that
everybody's out different.
Yeah, that's what everybody talks about. You know, visitors to Liverpool, that they speak about the camaraderie of the people. You know, being inviting. So
and it feels like that. You know, and so I was very, very poignant yesterday, and I don't mind admitting, I was holding up my card yesterday was a white one. I was over in block 207, and my mate I was doing a swap around, so my lad could sit with his mate and that. And it was very emotional, you know, and FSG, if you want to talk about that angle of it, they've been very respectful to our traditions there, and they've obviously looked at this and thought, well, the history is this, we need to respect it because this is what these people are. And if they got anything like that wrong, we'd be sure to tell them. But they've seen, obviously it was beautiful. And it was, I liked the way that they read out the names, the people that the club had lost and the staff at the club, who'd been lost. And obviously all of us will have issues, and, so many people during this pandemic will have lost people who were close to them. And it would have been appropriate to read all those names out. But obviously that's not practical, or people wouldn't feel comfortable communicating with you should put those names forward or whatever. But it just showed that the club was understanding. And obviously that goes to the club, and the fans is the club, and the fans understand that we've all lost a lot during the pandemic, and it's right to mark it. And it's a badge that Liverpool are gonna have to wear. 97, I wouldn't countenance Liverpool doing anything else. And I'm glad that they've put a marker down dead quick and said, listen, you haven't got time to do it for this season, but going forward, this is what's happening. Great, and I'm sure, names added to memorials. And I do know for a fact, because of my close personal connections with Peter Carney, the flag man for Liverpool, and God, we've got some flag people, haven't we? You know what I mean? I'm very fortunate. I know the lads on the Spine Cop group, and, so proud of what they do. And I consider them youngsters going forward. And they've all got kids themselves now. Do you know what I mean? But I always look at them as the youngsters coming through. And Liverpool's got, the flags and the traditions and the respect in which they mark these things, but certainly Andrew's memory will be marked on the flags that we've got on our banners, and quite like to, I'd feel it was wholly wrong if he wasn't.
I'm sure Peter was pretty busy the last couple of weeks changing a lot of those flags, and so I'm sure he was enjoying it.
Yeah, he's got a lot on, and he's got an exhibition coming up in the Design Museum in London, nice. Which I'm delighted about, because Peter's not just a Hillsborough survivor. He's not just one of the driving forces, that a key person in helping us get to where we got. In the truth, if not accountability, we certainly got the truth. And he deserves to be recognised as an artist in his own right, and not just a football flag maker. And so the fact that he's got this, I can't wait to go and see this exhibition. Can't wait to spend that time with him.
We had one more question. So
his missus is probably going to get pissed off, because they're going to have no curtains left in that house.
Good shout, yeah.
Hey, Damian,
she's great. She's absolutely great, and the best partner he could have. The two of them go together great. You know what I mean?
Hey, Damian, I have a question for you. I mean, you mentioned traditions, and we get the return of the safe standing areas. What are your personal thoughts, and were you involved in any of that decision making to bring those back?
No, not in the decision, okay. But certainly I'm very right. Okay, I thought that we should be involved in, or there should be some kind of discussion on if something so significant is in the way that you are, if you want to call you a customer, in the way that you consume these things on anything it is. I think you should, do it. What do you call it? Data gathering, or a survey before, and what's right and that. It's hugely sensitive for us, of course, the rail seats. I went to a meeting that John Paul Taylor, lovely fella from Celtic FC, they done a meeting at the Liner Hotel in Liverpool and invited people to come along, and he's shown a very respectful, dignified manner on how it all works, what it looks like, how they've come to the decision, and why they think it's the best thing. Spirits of Shankly had organised a survey where it said something, it was like 80 odd 90% or something like that, said they were in favour of it. Family support group officially are against it. I understand that, and I think everyone around understands it. And I've done an interview about this. What we need to do is we need to understand each other. We need to be respectful of each other. And social media doesn't have to make people adversarial, doesn't it? And they shout things and point fingers and and all that, like in the way that they wouldn't do to your face. And we certainly don't need any kind of language like that around this. And I think the issue needs to be handled very sensitively. Now, I was undecided about this. Now, I survived Pen 4, which is one of the 2 central pens. I survived the crush. I escaped onto the pitch, crawling over people's heads. I understood what it was like to be there. I understood that we were part of the reason for all-seater stadia. But all-seater stadia in Britain wasn't introduced until 94, I think. Yeah, last day of the COP was in April 94. So the 94-5 season. So if terracing is inherently unsafe, why were they playing Russian roulette with us after 89 to 94? So there's my first question. And we'll never know this, but I think that if rail seats had been an option that was offered to Lord Justice Taylor as part of his inquiry, I think he'd have gone for it. Now, I'm very lucky in a lot of ways in the fact that, and I haven't texted him back yet. There's a marvellous fellow at Liverpool Football Club, Tony Barrett, who does so much stuff. He's the best signing Liverpool have made since Jurgen Klopp. Right? He's absolutely marvellous. He's got that impossible job of satisfying all our supporters with so many different angles, attitudes, needs, and demands. He's fantastic, and he's been sensitive about the thing. And I've spoken to him about it. Put it that way. But I know there was I know the Anfield Wrap did a video showing how it works and what it looks like, and those videos like that are so important, because instead of just like having an idea about what it's like, you can see what it's like. And my understanding is that Liverpool FC themselves didn't say we were putting rail seats in. They were told, you've got to put them in. And I think the timing of it is important. The family support group are officially closing, aren't they? I think their wishes, You know, imagine being in that group and have campaigned for so long and be happy with that. Say that all-seater stage here is definitely safer than the terracing that we used to have.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the legacy for their loved ones that they have been able to deliver is they know that people go in the match go in a safer environment. So who's going to stick an oar into the middle of that? It doesn't mean we shouldn't have a conversation, but it absolutely means we should respect the position of the family support group and or anybody else who's against the rail seating. Mm-hmm. But my opinion is, by the look of it, given that culturally we haven't been able to stop people standing at the matches, and given the fact that even if you did, in a goal celebration, for example, it can be dangerous when people are spilling over each other and things like that. And that's happened to me. You know, I've been knocked over into the next row and whatever, you know, don't get me wrong, I'm all right. But serious injury can happen. And this rail seating does solve that problem. I've only got one question left with it, and I haven't got to the bottom of it yet. I don't know if I ever will. John Paul Taylor in his presentation was absolutely brilliant. And so I was like the last question, you know, put my hands up and he gave me the opportunity to speak. And I just said, I've got no doubt in my mind, you've passed every single safety issue going and cleared the hurdle massively. You've done it with a lot of care, a lot of love, and you absolutely believe this is the best and most safe way to do it and gets the atmosphere there. You've done absolutely everything you should. So, but I've got a question for you. You know, those rail bars that about this height here, as we're talking now, that you lean on.
Mm-hmm.
What if there's a bomb scare or a fire at the back of the stand? People need to escape onto the pitch. Does that bar there inhibit you more than just a set of seats where would? And he just paused and said, no one's ever asked that question. Now, I understand why that isn't part of a safety question, but it was my question because that's how I survived. Mm-hmm. I had to get over the heads. So that's the only question I haven't had answered. And so I can't definitively say, yeah, I agree that this is it. And it might be that in certain circumstances, it's inhibiting, and in certain circumstances, it isn't. I also feel not a duty because I don't have to do anything, but I do think it's important that if anyone's going to talk about this sensitive issue and is going to try to reach out to both sides of the argument, I think you could do a lot worse than speak to people who survived and experienced the whole thing and why. See, a mate of mine who I was at the match with yesterday, went to school with him. He's never stood on a football match since. Mm-hmm. Still goes to match, enjoys the seats. There you go. But I wanted to continue to stand up. So there's, you know, and both of them are legitimate beliefs, requests, desires, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? So it's a difficult one, but I must say the way it's been introduced and the sensitive manner in the way it's been introduced has been correct. And I do believe, I think it probably is the solution. Yes. But I'd still like to actually go in one. And I'd still like to see a safety expert sort of answer that question that I've asked. And that's just me indulging myself, quite frankly. You know, they don't need to do that. They don't need to satisfy that if they've satisfied everything else. But that's my question. And I will still ask that question because I believe that I believe passionately that we should be heard.
Mm-hmm. Oh, most definitely. I wanted to bring up because I've noticed on Anfield Wrap you do talk about Hillsborough a lot. A couple of weeks ago, you had that sit around, and you know, I had mates, brothers that went there, and you know, gladly they came home. Is it more therapy for you when you're able to discuss it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it has been. I think because there's loads of people out there who haven't spoke about it, but we had to speak about it. You see, at first, you're looking at Britain in the 1980s. Young men didn't start talking about their feelings. You know, there was a stigma to counselling, certainly for young fellas. You know, that wasn't macho, that wasn't manning up. You know, I'm so pleased in the way that society moves forward, doesn't it? You know, it's, you know, there's still many ills in society. You know, there's still too much sexism, racism, everything. Do you know what I mean? But there are certain areas where things are getting better. And there's, you know, I think back to being a football fan, some of the chants and the behaviours, you know, people would be genuinely shocked, I think, if you could listen to recordings of these things. And so there's been huge strides about that. So with regard to mental health, I think quite right, it's getting recognised much more as it is. I think people are going to look back at us at the end of this century and say, weren't we primitive? It's going to be, you know, something like that. So I was really struggling to cope. I couldn't. I've worked in Liverpool city centre since 1987. Where I worked, 2 employees were unlawfully killed, and so many of us were affected. At the match, waiting for people to come home and all this. And so I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder to a moderately severe extent, and was told by a squadron leader who debriefed me as part of the legal thing that we sounded very much like the Gulf War 1 veterans, in the way our attitude to life and the experience that we'd gone through. And, it was horrific. And certainly that was a very bumpy ride. And speaking about my experiences, I didn't feel worthy at first. I mean, that might sound mad now because I don't stop talking about it, but I want to be known by more than just that. We've had to talk about this, so at first we would always defer to the families because they lost. Their family paid the ultimate price. We were fortunate we came home. But over time, because of the injustice and because of the lies, I was very much of the mind, well, no, I'm not. I will never accept that. And if anyone asks me the question, I'll be able to put them straight. But there's quite clearly a need for education on this, and a need during the campaign for people to be able to talk about what it was like. The fact that I get pushed back in by a police officer, by I get ignored in my requests, by the fact that the people who I got involved with on the pitch, a policeman did help, and so it's important to say that. Because if you try and paint it all one way, it's not right. It's the truth we've spoke about all the time. So there's a young officer who helped us, but in the main, people in dark uniforms stood around doing not much, and the people who'd escaped death got stuck right in. That's the great untold story of Hillsborough. Why is the number so low? People who came home from Hillsborough couldn't believe the death toll was so low. That was my experience. And I just thought, you've got, talking about it was a key part. And over time, because the campaign had not stuttered, the campaign didn't stutter. The legal systems stuttered. The legal systems let the truth down, let accountability down. So there was still a need to talk about things. And so I've kind of counselled myself by accident. I went into counselling in 1989 and was counselled for a couple of years. And I didn't know if it was doing me any good or not. But I think it has. And certainly I've got friends who've hardly ever spoken about their experiences. And then friends and associates who have felt more comfortable talking about it because of the achievements during the campaign. They feel like a relief. Oh, actually, now more people have spoken about it. Now that legally it's landed somewhere else, it's more valid for me to be speaking here. And so I encourage that to anybody who needs to share their experiences. And so I'm sure that, a medical person would diagnose me and saying, you're going through a choppy time here, or that's actually done you good or whatever. But in the main, I kind of think I've ran the journey. And I don't mind telling you, I could never have done this show before the campaign. No chance. I would never have placed myself. One of the things, as you'll know this by heart, if anyone knows the answers to all the questions in school, you don't put their hand up and answer all the questions. No one wants to be, look at me. If you ever look at Liverpool's support, it's never been, he's the top Liverpool supporter. There's a higher rise. It's not like that round ours. It just isn't. So I've never thought to myself worthy of speaking about this. But there was a gap. And 2 things happened to me with regard to talking about it was I became a dad. And if we'd have been timed out with the legal campaign, I just thought, and my lad started going to match now. And I just thought, if I'm dead and gone and in 20 years from now, for example, it was like, well, what was all that about? I wanted to speak to my son from the grave, if that was necessary. So that was the first reason. And then, of course, the 20th anniversary came up. And because of my involvements with, contributing to the Justice campaign, I certainly wasn't a key or founder member of that. All of those people have got friends of mine, and I've got huge respect for them, all that they did. I felt like I came along during the campaign, because I understood, I had it explained to me, and it had a profound effect on me, that the experiences that I could talk about was the same experiences that were followed by those who were unlawfully killed right up to until the pinch point of when they were taken from this world. And so we could speak for them. And I was like, yeah, that needs to be told. And I thought, I just can't drop this because I'm not getting timed out. It isn't like, it isn't life a bit shit sometimes and bad things happen to nice people. No, the disaster of Hillsborough wasn't premeditated. It was neglectful. It was criminal. It was unlawful. But the conspiracy after the fact was deliberate. The conspiracy after the fact was wicked and was the second disaster of Hillsborough. And so, while there is water in our river and blood in my veins, I will tell you what happened because I was there. Mm-hmm. And that's the passion that I found in a lot of survivors who've been able to speak about their experiences. And then the 20th anniversary came up, and it was like, I remember calling it the moonshot, because I knew that the media would be looking at us because the 20th anniversary, we've got 9/11 coming up very shortly, haven't we? The world is quite rightly going to focus on these horrific events, look back at it, look at the human stories. What can we learn? What's the understanding? What's the historical significance? What do we need to teach kids in schools about this? All that. Well, that was, this was our moment of and I knew the media would be looking at us, and it was like, right, well, let's tell them what happened. And it just changed the game completely, didn't it? It really started. The 20th anniversary started the roll towards the panel report. And because the truth's always been on our side, and we've never said anything other than the same things since coming out the ground on the 15th of April, 1989, we had nothing to hide and nothing to fear from any truth and from any accountability. And so, and the story's so horrific and so tragic and so powerful that I've just seen myself as a vehicle for the story, if you like. And I was talking to a great mate of mine, Richie Greaves, and we had a chat about it when we first got introduced, and we hit it off straight, very close. And I just said, the likes of yourself, Richie, and Richie showed great courage speaking in the initial inquests, and has shown great courage in his testimony going forward. I just said, well, for those of us who can talk, year by year, there's going to be less people who were there that day as time moves on. And so let's speak for, if we can talk, then do it for the team, because we can. And that's kind of me help with it, really. And it was always out there to do an important one for the Anfield Wrap, and the Anfield Wrap are very keen to follow up. There's a lot of important work in front of us, not just the Anfield Wrap, but other Hillsborough Survivors Association I'm involved with, connections that we've got with the truly great Professor Scraton and other friends that we've got. There's a whole lot of education and information that we can put forward going forward on something that is, basically, it was a civil rights struggle in this country, human tragedy. Look at the courageous mothers, who refused to accept the incorrect death certificates, for example, and things like that, and I just felt I can talk about it, and I was there. So here you are. And not like a duty. It's just that I've found that I've been able to do it, and I'm glad someone's doing it. And I've never spoke on behalf of anybody else because I wouldn't feel qualified, to speak for anybody else. But I do know from me close personal friends, like, for example, the guys I go to every anniversary with, who were all there that day, they're happy that one of our gangs having the say, because they're saying, well, that's how it was to us, so make sure it gets said. So they're happy. And then, so by definition, life's a team game, isn't it? And those who have been able to speak, in my opinion, have only been able to speak because of their own personal drive, but also the support of the people around them. And certainly, for example, those lads who I've just said, they're glad when I get the opportunity to say things. I've been able to say it because they've got my back. Do you know what I mean? That's a very important part of it.
I don't really want to use the word like victory because it just sounds out of place, but yourself and like some of the families, how did you feel on the day that they actually did say they were unlawfully killed?
I think victory is a good word, actually. I understand why you'd say, why you'd be cautious about using that. How can we ever be victorious on a subject so horrific? We've all lost. We can never do anything else, but it was a victory for the truth. And that is some form of justice. It's incredible how I felt. I didn't realise how much of the weight of it I was carrying around with me. I was in the annex next to the court in Warrington, and there was 14 questions, and we won 14-0, didn't we? Which begged its own question, right? If you've got the verdict of the inquests is so emphatic, it's not like there's 14 questions and it was 8-6, 14 questions and it was 10-4, and with hindsight, hang on, we got this. It was 14-0. Stitch that, unequivocal, which begs its own question. How could something so emphatic take 25 years or more to uncover? I could go on about this. I've got loads that could tell you. But basically, when they were reading the questions out, it was just incredible. And we were expecting the questions to take ages. The judge comes in and, comes out with a big spiel and, and all this, and, and they're going to talk in slow-mo. It wasn't like that. It was literally like, question 1, yes. Question 2, did it? Yeah. And it was just like someone had put a shotgun in the ceiling. And I remember it coming up to question 6 and 7. Question 6, unlawfully killed. And I remember it was just like incredible. Just being vindicated is the word rather than anything other. I think vindicated. Because our people were exonerated at the end. The longest inquest in the history of the British Empire. Thank you very much. So you can have your opinions and you can have your biases. You can have your own agenda. You can have what you like. But if you want the definitive truth, here's the longest inquest in a country that considers itself just in its history, and it's an emphatic verdict. Unlawfully killed meant so much to me. But I'll tell you what else made something so much to me was like the fans, the supporters. Were the supporters to blame in any way, shape or form? Flat no. And then it said, do you think they might have maybe contributed a bit? Like, almost to give the verdict a second chance. And imagine if it would be, well, yeah, a couple of lads threw a bit of litter on the floor, yeah, or what, it just exonerated us, it just like blew it out the ballpark, that was it. And there's no, of all the video evidence and all the audio evidence, there's none against us. There isn't any. There's all this stuff all over the telly. There's none of it. There's no evidence other than the words of people who wanted to cover themselves and cover the conspiracy against us. Now, they happen to have the power. So that put us to a disadvantage. But look at what people power can do. Mm-hmm. Look what love can do. Look what loyalty can do. And so to be exonerated and to have it officially recorded that there's not only with it those 97 people unlawfully killed, but the fact that they weren't to blame themselves, but us around them and those friends and family who they went with were also exonerated and blameless. And the inquest blames all the agencies. So, yeah, I haven't prepared this. So where's my wallet? Now, my mates will laugh because they'll say, I'm not surprised, don't prepare getting your wallet out very often. But there you go. But there's something I've got in my wallet. Got it in here. So if we get run over, or anyone's got any questions, neither of which I hasten to add, I hope very soon. There's those questions. There's the definition of who's responsible for Hillsborough and who isn't. Me and my mates, my community, it's all there. And I carry that around with me because it's that important to me, like a bar of rock. You can explain that as for us later if you like. But basically, I can't tell you the privilege. And then to be on St. George's All Steps, which I've done a couple of times now, once with the panel report, and then once after those inquests. And I think about, that's such a significant place for our community. You think of the workers' strike, where, people, the suffragettes were there, where there's a gathering of just people, a gathering of people saying, this is us, this is Liverpool, and this is, to be on those steps, I'm like, wow, this is historic. This is world news, isn't it? Literally world news. And here I am privileged to be on these steps in the bosom of my community, in the history of our people. I'm proud of what we've all achieved, humbled to be part of it. And it's the world's a better place. The world's a better place for those inquest results, statements of fact. And so it's made all the heartache of any campaign that I've done. And I won't be shy telling you, when I wrote the article you mentioned there, Stephen, about, that went on the Justice Campaign website, I went through a rocky time after that. I was battered in the ale after that. I was struggling again. It took me back. Do you know what I mean? It really, and the emotions weren't good, And then round the 20th anniversary, because I got involved in the media coverage, going to the matches at Anfield, I could taste it again. I could beam myself right back. You'll talk about survivors of horrific events, and they'll be able to tell you, I close my eyes and I can take myself straight there. That's where I was. So it wasn't easy, but it had to be done. It had to be done. It was more important than I, and I knew I could navigate it. So, I couldn't be more proud of my community, and everybody else who pitched in and helped us. Yeah, we should be very proud of that.
And I'm getting a bit emotional too. Jesus.
Well, let me, I always hesitate to change the subject off of Hillsborough, be it, not from Liverpool and coming to the club as a fan and supporter only since 1996, and learning as much as I can about it, obviously through people like yourself and the other guests that we've had on previously, and reading. So I do recommend to all our viewers and listeners to if you want to learn more about Damian's experiences and just Hillsborough in general, search out his writings. He's done a lot of interviews that you can find on YouTube, so I recommend searching for those and then listening to them and learning a lot more. So we appreciate you sharing all that with us, Damian.
No problem at all. And I'm not uncomfortable talking about this. And I'm not going to have a bad afternoon now or nothing.
Yeah,
I'm very full.
So
I've got a loving family.
Yeah. So let's. I want to ask you something, because we had Joe Blott on recently. Obviously, Spirit of Shankly.
What a lovely fella Joe is.
Yeah,
what a gentleman.
He is. And you had mentioned earlier about you're working on ticket pricing, and sometimes we look at it from across the pond here. We see, Anfield sold out. The traveling fans. Anytime there's a big match in Europe, we have more people traveling than there are tickets. So what? So after the Super League fiasco, Joe came on and said that they were going to work on a fan group to work on ticket pricing. Are you involved in that? And what are if so, what are some of your thought processes and proposals that you think can change the dynamic?
Well, I'm not officially. Yeah, great questions. I'm not officially involved in anything at the moment. I've certainly spoken to Joe about it. He knows I'm passionate about these things. I would like to be involved in something like that. Spirit of Shankly and Joe, they've got so many great people. I don't need to enter that building. Whatever room they've got going on there, I trust them implicitly, and I will back whatever they're coming out with. They're smart people. I'm really proud. We've got a officially registered trades union acting on our behalf. I would encourage anybody who follows football of Liverpool FC persuasion to get involved and look at what the Spirit of Shankly have got to do, because you've then got a voice. Now, this is how smart the Spirit of Shankly have been. They've got themselves an official recognised relationship with the club now.
Right.
And then if you're a member, I speak to Joe. I must do his head. And I phone him up and he can't get me off the phone. Do you know what I mean? And that. But he always indulges me with his time because of the way that he is. And it's important to make that contribution, like you say. Now, with regard to ticket prices, the answer is no, not at the moment, but I am keen to be. And it doesn't necessarily mean just Spirit of Shankly, by the way, LFC as well. I think I've got more time, because it's something that wouldn't take up a load of meetings. It's something that I could put an email together, put some thoughts, go on a Zoom call, all that, so I can certainly make time for that. I think it's disgraceful, the ticket prices. Lord Justice Taylor, got to mention before, one of the things he recommended was all-seater stadium. And one of the things he said was that putting football matches to all-seater stadia, it shouldn't price the traditional supporters out of the game. Well, it did. And the article I wrote in 2010, for example, was saying I'd started going the match at Anfield. One of the things that jumped out at me was it was 45 quid to watch Liverpool versus Arsenal in 2010. And in 1986, my entire season ticket cost 45 quid. And that was for 22 matches, by the way, not 19. Mm-hmm. So at a time when the money and interest that came into football on the back of us and after the Premier League and all that happens, the transfer fees, the wages that the players are getting, sponsorship deals and all, there's this cake that's got massive. And the agents have got more out of it. The clubs have got more out of it. The players have got more out of it. The sponsors have got more out of it. Well, who's got more? Have the fans got more out of it? No. The fans have been told, I'll tell you what we'll do. In real terms, we'll charge you 4 or 5 times the loyalty that you had for keeping the game going when there was only 30-odd thousand at Anfield will be rewarded by, we'll let you have your ticket, but in real terms, 4 or 5 times what it used to cost you when you kept us going. I don't see it any other way. Now, the away ticket cap in the Premier League, I thought that was marvellous, that. And I think it's, and you've got to look at, again, on Merseyside, we've got active people who are starting these things off and who've got the courage and who are articulate enough to get things like this moving. Well, I think the whole home and away ticket should be 30 quid, top price, because it means it's affordable then. Now, you might get more people trying to get in the same place then, and that might lead to another issue, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. You don't sort of like, well, let's price people out so we can get the queue shorter. That's wrong. That's wrong. These football clubs aren't just businesses. They're a part of the community. Mm-hmm. You know, you've only got to look around anything, really. I mean, I personally, right, you know, I was delighted England got beat by Italy in the European thing, right? Because England just aren't my team. They're just not. But I understand anyone who does follow England. And I understand as well, and you could see around, it's an illustration to make that a lot of people are feeling good. And you put the radio on, they're all like playing the songs, and isn't it great and isn't it exciting? Well, Liverpool's like that itself. And you've only got to look up when Liverpool are doing well, how everyone in the streets got spring in the step. And the celebrations that Liverpool put on, you can see what it means to people. So on a weekly basis, for everyone and everyone's club, in equal respect to all the other clubs. And obviously I'm passionate, I'm going to be biased about mine, but, you know, really, it's, people have got to have an opportunity. And then Liverpool has built itself into a worldwide club. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I embrace that, absolutely. I'm delighted about that. Because a lot of the time in the 1980s, for example, even our local regional news, which was based in Manchester, it felt like they would like highlight where Liverpool was going wrong, but not necessarily other parts of the region. And it was sort of like, well, if anyone mentions Liverpool, it's like, it's football or the Beatles. And there's two positive things to that being, well, anyone who wants to come to Liverpool and give us a chance, that'll do me. Because what usually happens is when people do visit and do get involved in the club, they love it. They want to come back because they felt welcomed, because they've enjoyed it.
I almost got divorced.
Well, there you go. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, so basically, there should be more opportunities. And certainly what I don't like is I don't like the idea that the crowd's getting older and older. And any chance, and my lad goes, he's lucky enough, and I've been lucky enough to help my lad and his mates and between us in navigating the ticket system, not jumping it, not doing anything other than what people, but to know how it works and to be persistent and work together to help people get credits that they deserve. You know, because then we're all active, you know, we're all looking at it and we're saying, you need these credits, you need to be in this queue at this time. And then once you've got these credits, you can keep moving up the ladder. I'm very passionate that we need the prices to be cheaper than they are for the youngsters to be able to afford to go, because they're the future of anything. It doesn't make any sense as a business model, does it, to say, well, your active consumers and or audience are going to get older and older. They'll fall off a cliff at some point, won't they? Mm-hmm. You need to bring them in. So while the stadium's getting bigger, while rail seating's getting introduced, while Liverpool's got a fantastic trade union that represents its fans in the best way that it can, and has got a direct relationship with the club, now's the time. Mm-hmm. Let's have the conversation. The clubs around it, and the problem is, it goes back to this. It's divide and conquer of the working class in this country. It still echoes the class system in this country. So what happens is, the rivalry in football is such. If Liverpool FC charge 50 pence more than one of their rivals, and everyone else charges an unreasonable price, everyone points at Liverpool, for example, and says, yeah, you're the problem. Mm-hmm. You charge 50 pence more than us. It can't be us. It's not us. What we should be doing is Liverpool fan groups at Liverpool should be challenging their club directly, because that's our club and that's our business. Mm-hmm. But what should happen is the fans of the other 19 teams in the Premier League and the fans in the rungs below should unite. So say, for example, Liverpool and Manchester United fans, here's just an example. They said, you know, this pandemic where you're going to let us all back in, if you don't let us in for 30 quid, we're not coming. And they'll be, there's millions of yous. It's all right. If you don't come, there's another 50,000 behind. Don't worry about it. All right, then go on. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll buy the tickets and we'll boycott the match. Mm-hmm. And you can't stop us doing that. And it'll be all over the news. And see how it works with your sponsors. And let's see if we can raise a political issue out of this. Let's see if we can have an educated conversation. Or even if you just said, and I mentioned Liverpool and Manchester United because they're the most, I think there's more ticket demand for those two clubs than any of the others. Mm-hmm. And everyone knows that the relationship between the fans is acrimonious, to say the best. But they've got so much in common with each other. I've got loads in common with Manchester football fans, haven't I? Mm-hmm. You know, and they're two great historic clubs. You know, it's killing me saying it, but it's a fact, isn't it? You know what I mean? And they'd say the same backwards. Mm-hmm. So if we unite and we say, well, I'll tell you what we'll do as a group of fans, not just Liverpool fans protesting against Liverpool, but Liverpool, Manchester, Everton, the London clubs, the Midlands clubs, all of them said, listen, this is not a fair deal. And when the next TV money comes in with a squillion quid each, where everyone else gets rich, part of the money sponsors all the tickets being 30 quid and half price for juniors and other concessions. Now, I think that is a victory that would be won very quickly if the fans across individual teams united. Mm-hmm. They have to unite across each other. And there has to be a debate now has to be about the Spurs of Shankly. And I know that they've already done it, the smart people, reaching out to other clubs, organisations and saying, listen, none of us like the Super League. None of us liked it at all. Look what we did. We forced down these multi-millionaire, unbelievable, worldwide finance people who are smart, know their business. We forced them down. Let's press home the advantage now. Let's have instead of going, my club didn't want to join the European Super League, yours did. You're the evil. Oh, yeah, all right, yeah. Do you know what I mean? 20 years ago when your club was good, 30 years ago when your club... The problem in the Premier League, I was against the Premier League. Premier League's, mate, has been... If anyone wants to look, the creation of the Premier League was always going to lead to a European Super League. It's always going to go that way. It's greed, it's capitalism in football. Even just the rule in the Premier League where they said, well, each home club keeps its own gate. Clubs used to share the gate in the Football League. And so when you're playing a team with an average home attendance of 10,000, they were getting a share of a bigger share each week. But while you get a club like Liverpool, so I'll blame me own, who gets a big attendance every other week, then keeping their own gate, inch by inch, you're getting further and further financially away. And then the league rewards you by an extra £1 million for finishing above them. So next year you start even more in front and even more in front. And it's going to go like that. And so we can't control all of it, but we should be able to say, we're the supporters, where you've just watched football in the pandemic and it's been entertaining, but it hasn't been anything like what it used to be like. And it isn't anything like what it's going to be like going forward. So if we unite over issues and don't make unreasonable requests, I'm not saying let's get in for £1. I'm not saying any of that, but pricing on tickets and distribution and allocations of them, we owe it to ourselves to, instead of just constantly just taking whatever's given to us, you know, and then you've got fans who say, well, I don't mind paying an extra £5 if we win the league. No, we're all going down the same rabbit hole, aren't we? Dial it backwards. Okay, have more supporters. Have a smarter management system. Get the best players. Have the advantage because, for example, people have moaned about Man United being on the telly all the time in the FA Cup matches. Well, there's a bottom line here. There's that many people who like watching Manchester United that do want to put them on the telly, so there's viewing figures. And there's that many people then who dislike Man United. They'll watch it and they hope they get beat. So they deserve what they've built up. They deserve a part of that. So I don't disagree that these great clubs that we've got deserve something for being the great clubs, because that's the way people turn the telly on. But I'll dial it the other way round. There was a European Cup semi-final a couple of years ago. You might remember it, right? Barcelona were 3-0 up from the first leg. If they'd have played anywhere else other than L4 OTH that night, they were in the final. Anywhere else in the world. People tuned in that night thinking, Liverpool get the first goal. This could go anywhere, this. Now that's not just the team. That's us behind the goal. So we have a stake in this and we are a significant player. And if FSG are as smart as I think they are, they'll accede to some of our suggestions. And if the football fans can finally be as smart as they should be and unite across the clubs for common interest, then we'll get to somewhere where we deserve to be. And something that really should have been granted to us after what happened to us in 1989.
Agree wholeheartedly. That's why, you know, when we had the last two friendlies at Anfield, you saw basically nothing but kids. It was great.
Loved it, yeah. No, it was fantastic.
That's what I'd like to see more of, is like the dad bring their young lad that at the moment too expensive.
Yeah, and too difficult to get. And I get it. I mean, I put a picture up. I'm not big on Twitter. I enjoy it. I have a nice time on there. I don't get involved in arguing with people. So it's not going to do anyone any good. If someone wants to have a go at me, I'll just let it go. I'll ignore it. I don't need to go back to them. It's all right. But I put a picture up there yesterday of being back at our pub, but deliberately of a couple of generations. So there was a handful of fellas my age and a handful of fellas my lad's age. And like I say, I've seen a couple of youngsters going to the first ever game yesterday. That's what it's all about. It's about family and it's about inclusivity, isn't it? Everyone getting a chance. And that's easy for me to say Because if Liverpool playing at Anfield, I go. If Liverpool get in the finals, tend to qualify. So I've got to accept that there might be a ticket solution, which means that I would find it more difficult to get away tickets and wouldn't be guaranteed final tickets. Am I prepared to do that? And that's a tough ask. That's a tough ask. But if I'm going to be honourable and I'm going to be honest, I've got to say yeah. And so what's going to happen is Liverpool are going to extend the ground and everyone goes, oh, great, 61,000 Anfield is right. Bigger if you can. Well, Liverpool have to get to the FA Cup final. Wembley aren't going to give us any more tickets just because we've got more regular fans. So we've got to come up with a solution that gives everyone a chance, rewards loyalty, because that absolutely should happen, but also gives people a chance. I don't know what the answer is, but I think that someone like myself, or not necessarily myself, by the way, not, it's absolutely, I haven't got any keys here. I'm saying I haven't got the answers. I think I've got all the questions. And then you sort of do a bit of brainstorm and then you say, well, that wouldn't sound good in the ALO start, or that wouldn't sound good to the people who go regularly. Well, I might have an ear. Do you know what I mean? Like any of my mates, any of my mates who I met the Stanley with yesterday, you could put them in the ticket committee. They'd know what was right and wrong. So it's not just questioning me. I'm just saying I'm prepared to put my money where my mouth is. But yeah, there's a whole load of ticketing issues, not least with the pricing, that needs addressing, because it's our game. It's the game of the people. And if eventually the price is all out, it's not going to be as good. The sponsors know that, and they've pushed us as far as they could, and then thought we'll take them with us into the European Super League. And we said, oh, you won't. So we need to press home our advantage now.
Well, the thing also is I don't understand, Damian, is, like the Champions League final as well. Spurs and Liverpool fans were given, 20,000 a piece, and then you have 20,000 for corporate. Like, it doesn't.
The away for family, and they have it in the FA as well. The football family in England, you know what I mean, and you'll get a stadium. How big's Wembley now? Is it 80,000, 90,000, something like that?
Yeah.
And you get like 20,000 each. As far as I'm concerned, they just literally should get the tickets, divide them by 2, and send them to the clubs. That's it. Now, the old argument in the FA was that it's a national occasion, the FA Cup final, and that's much less so now, obviously, because the interest, like you said, the Champions League, it's the new FA Cup, isn't it? Really, what the FA Cup meant to us into the late 80s was almost like the European Cup, almost. And there are people in 1977, when Liverpool were in both finals in the same week, were like literally couldn't really pick which one. Now that sounds mad now, but that was, I'm not saying people all sided with the FA Cup, but I'm saying the fact that it was genuinely a question shows you the value that was in the FA Cup. So people take advantage of this, don't they? People take advantage of it, and they give out, like you say, the UEFA family get 20,000. All right, sounds, you have been useful. Your money's being useful in marketing this, right? But proportionately, you should look at, for example, how many the amount of UEFA dignitaries gets bigger the further you progress into the tournaments as well. So you'll get people who can go to all the group games, but there's less tickets as each knockout round goes through, because obviously people want to be at this. But certainly the proportion of tickets that's given to the UEFA family, all right. It's just, I'm not saying they shouldn't get any. Money makes the world go round. People are going to say, well, hang on a second, I'm just financing this, and it's going to look like this. I think a couple of us should be at the top table when it's on feast day. Like, I get that, but proportionately, it's a disgrace how many tickets they get. And again, it goes back to the fan thing, doesn't it? It's sort of like, well, if there's some kind of boycott or some kind of protest, but you're in a rock and a hard place, aren't you? Because who's going to boycott the European Cup final? Mm-hmm. It's hard, isn't it? So this is why there should be discussions all the time, and certainly while. I don't like the Champions League either. I mean, I'm not against the format of it, but the way it hives all the money and all the sponsorship money, which then means basically you've got a Europa League left afterwards, which was such a fantastic competition, gets almost devalued, and people are like, I don't care if I'm in it's either Champions League or nothing. Do you know what I mean? And the whole budget, and I'll tell you what we'll do, we'll remortgage the club on finishing in the top 4. We'll take a chance. I mean, look at what Leeds did. We're either going to get in the Champions League or we'll practically go out of business. Mm-hmm. That's no way. And that's what happens in the Premier League. You've got teams who come up and say, well, we're going to gamble everything on the last horse in the hope that we get in that league and stay in that league. And if we don't, the very club could go out of existence. Mm-hmm. The whole way it's structured is wrong. It's all but what I found difficult is, and I mentioned the FA Cup final because obviously it's more local to us and what you're in there, you seem to be in there more often. But there's always been a protest every year over how many tickets you get for the FA Cup final, and everyone agrees with you that it's out of order. But such is football rivalry. They don't join the debate. They just go, I can't hear you at the moment. I just want you to lose the FA Cup final. Can we talk about it in August, please? Instead of going, right, hang on, brothers in arms here. We should be able to. Like the German fans are fantastic, aren't they? In so many ways. They're so far ahead of us in so many ways. I admire a lot of what they do. And there's fans of clubs where it's like there's an ownership issue. Even if it's a rival club, the other club comes out and supports them. And in the English league, they're made up and they're like they start laughing and mocking it and encouraging it and all this. And I understand rivalry. I do want rivalry. I do want passion. I do enjoy the crack. I do enjoy, taking the mickey out of each other. But something much more important for the future of the game is ticket allocations for finals and things like that. It's just disgraceful. These are the fans who keep the game going all the time. They deserve more. So there's got to be a better balance. There's got to be a better balance with how many tickets. But if we just shut up and don't talk about it, we're not going to get anywhere, are we? But it goes back to, again, across the national associations. Now, the fans of the clubs in the English Premier League have got to get together. And I'm sure then we could talk to the fans, in Serie A and say, you must reckon you get a rough deal here, guys. What do you think? And come together. And even if in the end, all we can do is shame them into it eventually, then it's a campaign that's worth following, isn't it? Because, if you go back to I would say this to anybody who's discouraged about getting tickets for Liverpool, it must be heartbreaking not to get any. And you must look at that and think, I'll never get in. But if it's something you're going to follow for the next 30 years of your life and you're always going to be interested, stick at it. You can win in the end.
Yeah.
Liverpool supporters have shown that on so many levels. You can win in the end. And if you look at with FSG, when we had the walkout, with literally about, I think it must have been about 72 hours notice, a quarter of the ground walks out. The following week, the English FA announced that the ticket prices would be reduced by a fiver for that season's semi-final and finals. We'd already been knocked out the FA Cup. And instead of building on that momentum from that walkout, it was sort of like, well, okay, that'll do now. You've had your say. We need to keep it going. We need to keep. I don't want confrontation all the time. I don't want murder all the time. I don't want to be arguing with the owners all the time. I don't want to be arguing with the FA all the time. I want to work all week. I want to spend my time with my family. And then every other Saturday on my half day off, I want to go and watch my mates.
Yeah.
Represent me.
Yeah. When we spoke to Joe, he had mentioned, incorporating eventually other countries into the working on the ticket scheme. So we appreciate your insights on that. It's such a great topic to talk about, and it affects so many people. But, as we're talking, I was like looking at this teddy bear behind you. And so I'm thinking kids, right? And then when I think kids and Liverpool, I'm thinking Harvey Elliott. So you saw him yesterday.
What a player.
And so give us your thoughts about him. Or were you surprised that he's stuck with the first team this year instead of going back out on loan? And he looks the real deal on the telly for sure.
He does, doesn't he? Yeah. I mean, we straight away, as soon as to play professionally at the age that he did, marked him out straight away. You'd have to take notice of that even if you hadn't seen him play. You'd say, well, how old was he? You're joking. And he still looks like a baby boy, doesn't he?
Yeah.
You look at him there, and he looked like, the shirt swimming on him. He looked closer to the mascot than he did to the first team players, didn't he? Do you know what I mean? But he's got a gift, and he's at the right club. Yeah. What a fantastic player. I think Liverpool have got in the next couple of years a serious question over how they replaced all the front three. Not in one go, and not necessarily this time next summer. They might have to replace one or two of them. That lad looks part of the succession planning to me. He looks as though, and so the question was, should he go on loan and play every week? And would he be happy with that? You've got to keep him happy as well. He's got to be thinking, hang on, you put me out to Blackburn there. Do you really like me? Do you want me? Or are you just trying to make some money on me here? You know what I mean? There's all that's going to be going through his head. And then some other club, like maybe not Liverpool, some other club who challenges for the top four, or so they'll say, listen, you can play in the Premier League every week for us. You can be captain in 2 years. You can be the star player. You'll be playing for your country because you're playing every week. So Liverpool's got to head that off as well, haven't they? But then Liverpool, because of the nature of the way the team's progressed, can't take a chance on youth. It can't say 2 years from now, this team will be great, because we're playing for the league and the European Cup now, this season. So that it makes it very difficult to accommodate this young fella. But he certainly looks old enough, and he certainly looks good enough. And to my mind, pre-season, I was looking at it thinking, The club have got to make their mind up. Is this lad good enough where you say, if we're playing a team at home, say Burnley yesterday, say he didn't start, say Fabinho didn't have that tragedy in his family this week, I think Fabinho would have started. Mm-hmm. I think Elliott might not have played, but I think he would have been their first option off the bench. And they would have been someone where the club think, if we haven't got a breakthrough with 20 minutes to go, this lad could be the solution. While there's tired legs, while there's tired minds, while there's gaps. So, yeah, he's got all the ingredients. I mean, you need a bit of luck in your career. I don't think, personally, his position will end up being where it is in midfield. I don't think it suits our team. If you look at the way our midfielders have played over in all our success, it's usually 3 fellas doing the work of 4 fellas, running round, facilitating the fullbacks going on, allowing the front 3 to get on with their business. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of being... So Liverpool might have to change the way that they play a little bit to accommodate this little fella. But if you're dead good, teams do get evolved around you. And so maybe he'll end up at the top of the midfield and as the 4th attacker, if you like. But we've got to work that out, because to me, yesterday, it didn't look fluid, the midfield. It didn't look like we were a complete unit. And I know it's early season and we've had to make some changes. So, but what a player. What a player. And he's got everything in front of him. It looks as though he could play 400 or 500 games for Liverpool.
Yeah, wow. He got battered yesterday and he just got up, shrugged it off. That's what I loved about him as well. But I think he's going to, I'd like to see him like a backup for Salah, because he's technically a winger.
Mm. So that's the way I see it.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it, yeah.
Liverpool just didn't look balanced yesterday.
No, but there's games where you can... I think there's games where you can get away with it, and yesterday was one of them. I don't think you'll see that midfield trio against Chelsea.
No.
I don't think we can afford to do that. They kill us. We might score a few goals, but they'll score at least as many.
But, Damian, isn't that a great thing about the squad, that, there's different ways to set up, You could have a Fabinho and Hendo and a Keita or a Thiago, or then you could bring in Elliott and an Ox. And, I don't have the sky is falling mentality that a lot of people do, that we didn't sign anybody else, because we do have very different players who can integrate into the way the club wants to play. I mean, even if we wanted to go back to a double pivot with Fabinho and Hendo on some of those big games, we could do that just as easily and bring in the, a 4th, like a number 10 behind Fabinho, or Firmino. So I'm excited about the whole season. And I told people we're going to win the league by 5 points. So that's my prediction.
5 will do. Yeah, that's fine. I personally think Liverpool will either win the league, or whoever does win the league will have to finish above us, because we're not finishing outside the top 2.
That's right.
So if Man City get their act together and they have an even break of luck, they're well capable of retaining that title. Fair play to them. Mm-hmm. Same for us. And what Liverpool's, I think, with regard to the signings and that, I think the squad is deep. You can always look to improve it. But I think Liverpool's most important signings this summer has been the big signings of keep and hold a certain place. That's the first thing. So you're solid. Your centre half's going to be there. The best right back that we could ask for is going to grow and have his best years at this club where he should be. Yeah. There's a level of confidence that will then increase. Someone signing for us, they'll say, "Well, hang on, who have you got?" Well, he's the right back's locked in on a low years. Goalie's locked in. Centre mid's locked in. So you're coming to a club which is going to be steady. Because Liverpool can't now bring in 4 or 5 players. You just got how many? Yeah. It's difficult for Liverpool, isn't it? How many players can you bring in with actually improve the starting 11? Now that's hard. Yeah. And then we play our way. So, for example, Jordan Henderson, who's a legend at this club now, he wouldn't necessarily have been as successful playing in the midfield that the rivals of ours use, but he fits this system. And so there's that team aspect, and that's why Jurgen's so great at what he does, and why Man City can spend so much more money than us, and we can still run them as close as we do, because tactically he can evolve as us tactically to match them, because you can only ever get 11 lads on the pitch at once. And so if you've got a squad, as long as you can get 11 boss lads and about another 5 behind them, then you're covered, aren't you? So, and obviously the injuries last season shows you, if you have bad luck with injuries, it'll kill you. It doesn't matter how good you are. But yeah, I'm hugely encouraged by the flexibility Liverpool have got, because you do need that. But also because of the Champions League. And I think the balance has to be sometimes where they say, in a game like yesterday with Elliott, you might say, well, okay, we're playing Barcelona on Wednesday, and we're playing someone in the league on Saturday, Watford at home on Saturday. We can afford Harvey Elliott on Saturday. So what we'll do is he keeps one of the front 3 fresh. Well, there's a slight niggle, and that's the key for someone like him. And so when you're talking about Chamberlain, or you're talking about Kaiser. They've all got it. They've all got the ability. A couple of those lads I've just mentioned there have got to show a bit more. They've been unlucky. Yeah. That's fair. That's fair to comment to say that. Yeah. I'm hugely impressed by those two lads, for example. I know they've got everything in them, but they've got to show it. Yeah. And that's the challenge, isn't it? But yeah, I think the squad's fantastic. And it's like the team needs to look like. I think the team needs to look like you need to know what 8 of them are every week. Mm-hmm. Every week, because you've got to get 100 points to win the league now. Mm-hmm. Back in the mid-80s, you could lose 6 games, draw 8, and still think that was enough. Now, the bar is such, you've got to literally say, if we score less than 90 points, we're not going to win the league. 90 points was the record for a long time in the Premier League. But that's where we are at the moment. So we can't have a week off. That's the point. And draws don't do. Yeah. And so it's how do you keep that relentless? But you've got to have a settled team. So you've got to have a lot of robust lads, haven't you? And you can't change too many. And so that's why I think Jurgen's so well suited to this particular club, because he likes dealing with kind of that many players, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? And he doesn't like, he said, put himself publicly in the past, hasn't he? I don't want too many players. It's too hard to keep. And then you get people who are unhappy in training, and there's a little bit of a them and us thing that, and all that. And that's no good either. So it's such a difficult balancing act. But I do genuinely believe Liverpool will make a couple of significant changes next summer. But it doesn't have to be till next summer. And we can enjoy living in this moment while the smart guys behind the scenes have conversations about how much money we've got, who we can afford next, and make sure that those players are aware that we like them, and make sure that we continue to play well, continue to compete at the top, and our crowd continues to be the most sexy team to play in, sexy crowd to play in front of, and they all want to play for us. Liverpool has become a place where a lot of players want to come to, I think, while Jurgen's been there. And we need to press, again, talking about before, you have to press home your advantage while you've got it.
Yeah, next year when we sign Mbappe, I'm going to have fun watching Darren apologize to about 10,000 people on Facebook. So
that'll be great. That'll be great. The very fact that we're even linked with somebody we can't afford. Right. Like the very fact that we're linked with somebody who would break every single logical financial decision that the club would make. And the very fact that the fans and the club would think, this might happen, this actually could be doable, shows you where we've come from during FSG's reign at the club. So who knows, it might be a financial step too far for the club, and it might be something that gains us a lot in the short term, and then we'd repent at leisure. How it might limit us. But the fact that we're talking about him, and yesterday on the train going to the match, we're talking about Haaland, and players like that. The fact that those sorts of players, I'm sure, would be delighted to be linked with Liverpool, shows you exactly that we are where we should be. You can't take anything for granted, but we are where we should be as a club.
I think people also forget that, we've signed Tsimikas, Thiago, Jota and Kanote. They didn't really have much of a season last season. So that's 4 players that really have come in that weren't there the season before when we won it. So all this, heads getting blown off, we got to bring a replacement for Genie, which I don't think we do. I actually would like to see another attacker come in, but if they don't, I'm all right with it. If Klopp's all right with it, I'm all right with it.
I think that's where Harvey Elliott comes in, doesn't it? If they sort of say, well, as long as we get an even break of luck, the 4 lads who we've got for 3 positions now stay healthy as much as you'd expect, and be entitled to think that they should be on a regular basis. So that's boss, isn't it? You know what I mean? Because, play 3 of them and have 1 coming off the bench. And then, like I say, during a relentless season, say to somebody, you're not playing on Saturday, you go on the bench. If we don't need you and we're winning 3-0, you're not coming on. But don't worry, next Wednesday you're playing against Bayern Munich. Don't worry about it. You're absolutely part of my plans. You've got to be able to do that. And Elliott might save the club a few bob, might buy the club a year. Oh, yeah. If he's good enough. And so that's the reward of signing someone really cute, really young, who really can blossom quickly. And then you've got a coach which can bring the best out of them. And that's where we need to be. And so that's the optimism I've got. I also think, I'm probably controversial because he didn't pull any trees up, but I wouldn't dismiss Minamino as an option in those sort of games either. And I'm not saying I think he's necessarily the answer. Certainly Liverpool will get the money back on him, but it's another body where you just think to yourself, well, Jordan, where Jordan a compressed a season where you're playing twice a week, there must be there are games where you can bring this lad in, drop him in, and he can we can win and we can give another of the main lads up front the day off that they need just to keep them fresh. Yeah, it's really important.
Well, same with AFCON, you know, people are blowing their heads off as well with that as well. But I mean, Salah and Mane, they're only going to be gone for at the most 3 league matches.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's so arrogant of Premier League fans. They sort of like they moan about the AFCON.
Yeah.
Like as if because we've decided to spend a lot of our money, and we've got more money than sense on a boss player from Africa, we now think your whole continent should reschedule where it's played because it actually suits us this week. No, I think we should be more respectful to the African continent for a start than the individual needs of our cash-rich clubs. And if you sign a player who's African, who's boss, who's that good that their country wants them to represent them in the later stages of one of the world's great tournaments, because each continent can only play its own tournament, then you should be thankful that you've got them for 35 games rather than none. Because there are teams out there who would give their eye teeth for some of their players who might be missing for 2 or 3 games. Now, I accept the challenge, and everyone's looking at the fixtures and saying, well, those couple of fixtures that Liverpool's got while they're potentially away are potentially winnable. Well, it's up to us as a club to say, well, we better make sure we add. We better make sure that Harvey Elliott gets enough games. We better make sure that Minamino is good enough, or we're not, we've replaced him, or whoever else. And it's up to us as a squad. Because the teams we're playing while those lads are away in the AFCON, them clubs haven't got the financial resources we've got. So quite rightly, they should have no sympathy for us. They should say, listen, this is your bed, you've made it. We wish we had that kind of money. This is your problem. Get on with it. That's my attitude towards it. In Jurgen, I trust. I think. Plus,
who knows? Kate Gordon might be in the first team by then.
Who knows? Who knows? Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, we still have Jota and Firmino will be around. Elliott.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. And you never know. You might have somebody else lined up. You don't know, do you?
Yeah. No.
That's the good thing. I actually think this is one of the loan deals that actually did work out for Harvey, because most of the loan deals that Liverpool have done, they've not come back. You know.
And I understand as well. It's tough to talk about it, isn't it? Really, but you know, the whole academy, the development of things. It's like a puppy farm, innit? It's like we've got to make these lads good enough to transfer them to somewhere else to pay for the academy next year, in the hope that every now and again, Robbie Fowler comes through, Steve McManaman comes through, Trent comes through. We've got to have an academy, and all those lads who train and play for the academy team, we've got to have someone to train alongside and play against to a certain standard. And so there's that financial thing about it, which of course then massive super clubs, ours being one of them, get to flex their muscles in that regard, and so they even win on that, don't they? So it's nice to see, like you say, a loan deal working out where they say they've put him away for a bit of time, they've come back, he's helped Blackburn, he's developed, and now he's the player that we want. You know, when I to be honest with you, I think personally the loan thing, I don't like the way that. And the good thing about being a fan of one of these clubs is I can call it out, and I'm not just moan. You haven't heard me moan about anything other than Liverpool or our clubs and say that we are financially well off. You know, so I don't like the loan thing. I don't think you should be able to sign about 30 odd players and loan them all out. I think there should be a limit to how many professionals you can sign on your roster. And then it's like, well, that lad should be good enough to be playing first team football in his career. If you have an interest in him, buy him when the time's right. Play him. If you think he's a year away and you want to steal a march on your rivals, well, you're going to have the guts to get hold of him and tell him he's going and play him. And that just levels the pitch a bit more for everybody. Because what's happening is the clubs are hedging all their bets, aren't they? What they'll do is we'll get all these young lads in, we'll loan them all out. And I've just said to you, I might get 1 or 2 of them, but we'll get our money back on the rest of them. Whereas if it was done more in the spirit of the game and not just from a business proposition, the spirit of the game would be, right, you're allowed 25 professionals or 30 or whatever it is, but you can't have any more than that. So not only have you got all that you can afford, and the best ones, you've also got these ace cards with these loans in the back pocket. And it just continually stacks the deck in favour of the clubs with the money, and then who are then smart enough to exploit their advantage at the time. And good luck to those clubs who have built these things up, and good luck to those clubs who had an owner come in and change the nature of their club. You know what I mean? You know, I don't want to take everything from everybody. I don't think everyone should have exactly the same resources. Clubs who build up following, clubs who get clubs who attract people to watch them on the telly, attract people through the gate to watch their team. Of course, they deserve rewards for what they've built up. If they're the reason people switch the telly on, if they're the reason people pay money, then they should be rewarded for that. But if you keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it in one direction, you'll end up with people trying to do a Super League. Mm-hmm. You'll end up You'll end up with the game being completely the opposite of what it was. Mm-hmm. And while people do enjoy seeing the big names, you know, they tune in on Champions League night. They don't want to watch a team from, I don't know, pick two countries, a team from Portugal and a team from Greece who they've hardly ever heard of. When it comes to the knockouts, people want to see, when the people watch the Olympics, you know, they wanted to see Usain Bolt in the final. And I get all that, but you can't have it like a closed shop, you know. And so I really do think the way they distribute things like that with the loan system is being unfairly exploited. But I do think, going back to it, Elliott's one of those genuine ones where they've bought him with the thought, this lad's going to play in the first team, this lad's going to play 400 games, and what's the best way of our development? Given the fact that the reserve league used to be worth something, and the nature of the Premier League is now there's not a reserve league worthy of the name. So what do? He helps out a local club. He comes back to us. Hopefully they got the benefits of it, and we have got the benefits of it. So yeah, it's the perfect example of what should happen. Definitely.
Well, just look at City, what they did. They sold 40 million academy players. That's what Guardiola was basically saying. We only paid 60 mil for Grealish because we sold 40 million academy players. Yeah. That's a joke.
It is, yeah. I mean, if it's within the rules, it's within the rules, and it's for them to be smart about that. I get that, so I'm not bitter about that at all. Far from it, you know. But I'm just saying it just highlights the fact that money goes to money. And is it in the spirit of the game? And when these lads signed, when these lads are dreaming of playing football, did they dream to play football to be loaned to somebody else? You know what I mean? Shouldn't they be making a career? Shouldn't they be going to a club and setting up where their families live and saying, this is where, you know, this is, but on the loan system, you've got like lads at Liverpool, like, you know, Woodburn, John to Hearts. Good luck to him going to Edinburgh. Where was he last year? Where was he the year before that? Where's the chance for him to make a base and say, okay, I'm going to have a couple of years here. Thank you very much. It's not, he knows for a fact. It's like, come back, do the friendlies. Where am I going? You know, and then where next year, then next year, then next year. That, you know, it's not in the spirit of it. So it needs looking at, therefore. I've always got the questions. I've never always got the answers.
Same here.
Yeah.
Lots of questions, but yeah, no answers. Yeah. Well, Damian, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. I really do appreciate you coming on and having a chat.
Right back at you. It's been lovely. Thanks for having us on. It's been a lovely chat. Stephen's looking forward to his pint when he comes over now.
That's right. Well, I'm looking forward to one here in about 10 minutes. So
yeah, good for you.
Out of the dog for you, Steve.
That's right. Yeah. Well, appreciate you coming on, Damian, and sharing your stories. You know, obviously, you know, we're going to continue to follow you and watching you on the Anfield Wrap and looking forward to any of your new writing. So we'll keep in touch with you guys.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, stay in touch. It's been a pleasure. It's been a lovely chat. And it just shows you, you know, how marvellous it is, you know, right across the world.
Yeah.
You know, and you can make a connection like this. This is the joy of football, or the joy of whatever your hobby is, and the fact that you connect to people. We've never met each other. And here we are talking to each other like we've known each other for years.
That's right.
That's the beauty of football, and that's the way the game should be celebrated, you know. And so it's been an enormous pleasure, and I appreciate you getting out of your beds early for us this morning.
No worries, mate.
When it was 7 o'clock this morning in our house, after yesterday's Guinness, I wouldn't have been as bright as you are now. I'm telling you.
Well, cheers, mate. Thank you for coming.
Take care of yourselves.
Cheers.